cross was a symbol of death, of suffering, of shame. And Jesus says, whoever would be my follower, they must deny themselves and take up their cross, be willing to die. And you know, and I know, that many faithful Christians, through the history for the last 2,000 years, have done exactly that they have died for their faith in Jesus. Now, people in the world today who are suffering and are willing to die because of their faith in Jesus. It means death. It means willingness to suffer. It means willing to live God's way, no matter what the cost. Will you follow Jesus? Jesus said, whoever would come after me, let them deny themselves, take up their cross, and follow me. It's not the way you would choose. He's not after admirers. He's not after cheerleaders. He's not after people who would just say, what a great man Jesus is. But he's after committed followers, disciples, people who would put into practice his example and obey his teaching. Will you follow Jesus? And he gives the reason in the Russian army for this in verse 35. Listen to what he has to say. He says in verse 35, for whoever wants to save their life will lose it. But whoever loses their life for me and for the gospel will save it. Who's speaking? Who says this? This is Jesus. He is the Son of God. He has lived for all eternity. He is the wisest person who ever lived. And he is saying, the way ahead is not to follow the logic of the world. It's not to follow the culture around you. It's countercultural. It's counterintuitive. Jesus says the way ahead is to let go in order to gain. To die in order to live. Do you believe Jesus? Or do you believe the culture? Do you believe your own logic? Do you believe what your friends say, what your boss says? Do you believe Jesus? He says, the wisest man who ever lived, the Son of God, he says, this is the way to life. Lose it for my sake. Give it up. Don't hold on. Give it over to me. Because he goes on to say, what good is it if you gain the whole world? You're the richest person who ever lived. And fell for your soul. What can you give in exchange for your soul? Jesus speaks the truth. He's the Son of God. He is the way, the truth, and the life. Will you follow him? Will you believe him? Will you put into action what he's actually saying? Will you follow Jesus? Jesus gives us solemn warning. He says in verse 38, if any of you are ashamed of me and my words in this adulterous and sinful generation, the Son of Man will be ashamed of you when he comes in his Father's glory with the holy angels. See, Jesus is saying, your attitude to me in this life will determine my attitude to you in the next. We don't really understand this concept in our culture about shame. Our beautiful friends from Asia and Africa can tell us a lot about a shame and honour culture. We don't really grasp what it means to shame our family or our society, to live with shame. Those of us who come from other cultures understand about shame, what that means. And Jesus is saying, if you bring shame on me by your attitudes, by your actions, by the way that you live, that's a great dishonour. And that's going to impact the way that I'm going to respond to you next. Ashamed of me. I was watching a few weeks ago the program Q&A, question and answer on ABC. And they were interviewing, or had as the panel, the one person on the panel was Tony Abbott. Now, I'm not wanting to make a political statement in any shape or form, but Tony Abbott was there and fielding questions. And he was very upfront about his faith. They questioned him about his Catholic background and his faith and his views on abortion and marriage. And Tony Abbott was very upfront and spoke very clearly about what he believed. He was ridiculed and criticised, but I think in the end respected by most people because he stood up for what he believed. I grew up as a person who was very shy. In my younger years, I was an incredibly shy person. I became a Christian when I was 16 and I joined the Salvation Army. The Salvation Army had to wear a uniform. And it was a really tough thing for me to do, to make a public declaration of my faith. And I found it really hard as a kid at school to tell people that I was a Christian because I was such a shy person. It's only in my later years I've gained a little bit more confidence, a bit more faith, a bit more trust in this. It's hard. I was talking to Russell the other day and he was saying to me that we need to take that sense of confidence and saying, yeah, we are a Christian. We do trust in Jesus. We are on the winning side. We have got faith and hope and love and answers to this life. We don't need to be afraid. We don't need to be ashamed. We've got what it takes. We've got the answers to life. We need to stand up for our faith. We need to be bold in what we believe. And tell people, yes, I'm a follower of Jesus. And I'm proud of it. I've got an answer for life. I'm a follower of Jesus. So Jesus gives us solid law. The next time you see Jesus, you'll see him as a judge. And you'll be asked to give an account of your life. I encourage you to side with him now so that you'll be at his side then. Jesus says, whoever would be my follower must deny themselves, take up their cross and follow me. Whoever wants to save their life will lose it. Whoever loses their life for me and for the gospel will save it. If any of you are ashamed of me and my words in this adulterous and sinful generation, the Son of Man will be ashamed of you when he comes in his Father's glory. Whose side are you on? Will you follow Jesus? So we'll go to the last slide. One of the questions that we often ask is, yes, but how? Yes, but how? Will you follow Jesus? It's a question that you've got to answer when you first become a Christian. Yes, I will follow Jesus. I'll say no to my old life and I will say yes to Jesus. I will follow Jesus. But it's a question you must answer every day of your life. As a Christian, as a follower, that you don't get beyond this part. When we think about the cross, it was a symbol and the place of redemption.